All right, hi guys, and welcome back to the High Man podcast. Thank you for joining us again. It is the 7th of April, currently 4:20 p.m. Thank you again. Pete, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate, not bad. It's a nice day today, so happier than usual if it was a bad day, to be fair, so can't complain. Right, so today we're going to be talking about habits and stuff and getting more specific with what habits people should maybe incorporate into their lives. Um, More like on a weekly basis, daily basis, and possibly a monthly basis. Give you guys some examples and ourselves some examples of what we actually should include, and hopefully they become beneficial to you and your life, and we all become successful and rich. That's the goal, I guess. So yeah, shall we get started, Pete?
Yeah, let's do it. So, the first one I wanted to talk about was maybe even starting. We spoke about starting at the start of the day, but then I thought it'd maybe be better to kind of start the night before. I think something people should do to set themselves up for success the next day is making a schedule or at least planning what you need to do the next day. And this is something I've definitely noticed in myself. If I plan what I'm doing the next day, then my next day just reliably is more productive than it would be otherwise. And I have actually heard because I only thought of this just before we start recording, but I have actually seen before someone talking about how if you plan what you're going to do the next day, then I think the study's actually shown that it improves the quality of your sleep that night,
Oh,
and
really?
allows you to so yeah. Any thoughts on the value of kind of planning out the day the night before compared to doing it in the morning?
Yeah, I guess once you put in that like rigid structure to your day, especially like for the first part of the day, you you're almost kind of like ordering yourself to do it. Whereas if you wake up in the morning and you're thinking, oh, I could do this today or I should do this today, there's a higher chance that if you haven't planned it, you're just going to respond to how your body feels. And a lot of the time, people just want to seek comfort and they don't want to do the difficult tasks they need to do in the morning to set themselves up for the day properly. So maybe that's why it's so beneficial. That's the reason I probably understand it. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think so as well. I think the issue of leaving it till the next morning is basically what you said there about if when you wake up in the morning, you're not necessarily going to feel like doing difficult things straight away, which is why I think it's good to plan ahead of time things that you need to do to get off to a good start to your day. Because if you just wake up in the morning and rely on kind of what you feel like doing, then yeah, that's probably going to be a bit of an issue in terms of productivity. Having said that, if someone gets into the routine of like they have a solid morning routine and they wake up straight away and maybe get into some of the other habits that we are about to speak about, and then so they have a solid morning routine and then they have a look at their schedule and plan what they need to do for the day, then I don't necessarily see any problem with that. But yeah, for me personally, I think it's
Yeah,
good to do it the night before.
yeah, I can see why it's beneficial. I've never tried it to be fair, but maybe I should start trying it. Um, yeah, do you think it's something as simple as kind of making a mental note, or do you think it should be written down?
I think it's good to write it down or even use. I used to always write it down, but I've started actually using Google Calendar, just slotting in the different activities I need to do throughout the day. Kind of starting with things which are like obligations, places I need to be, and then specific things I plan on doing, like whether that be going to the gym or some other activity, and then try and fit in everything else I need to do throughout the day. So yeah, I think it's good to write it down, probably more than taking a mental note. Although it's definitely better just to spend some time thinking about and taking a mental note than to just not make any considerations at all.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I guess do you think it depends on the person if they would prefer to have a physical diary or to use like a laptop or a phone? Do you think
Yeah,
there's a big difference or?
yeah, it probably varies from person to person, whatever works for the individual.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. I like having a diary physical, but sometimes I think it would be easier on some sort of piece of technology because you can just change it so easily without it looking messy and stuff,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, that's
nice.
the main advantage. But I suppose there is a benefit in having something written down, especially if like you've got a pin board or something and you can put your schedule up on there.
Mm,
Then that's definitely something good to do as well. But yeah, I
yeah,
think just the main takeaway, just it's good to plan out what you're going to do the night before so you can get off to a quick start to your day.
yeah, yeah. And like you're saying, I think a big thing that I've realised from looking at this and just over my life is it's really important for everyone just to have their own personalised morning routine and like make it a ritual. Um, I think you're right that for most people it would be beneficial for them to the night before plan out what they're doing, but they need to get in the habit of just like making it second nature that they wake up, do this, do that, do this, do that, and that's where the start of success comes from. I think.
Yeah. I think the substitute for kind of making a strict schedule the night before is just having a really solid routine where you basically do the same thing every day. So
Yeah.
that's probably even better because you don't even need to plan it out. But I'd say even in that case, it's probably good to plan out. Like you might have a very solid structure to your day, but there will be slots in your day where, for example, you're working on things. I think it's good to plan ahead of time exactly what you'd be working on, for example. So I think everyone could probably benefit from it.
Yeah. Yes, that's good. So should we get into kind of some specific habits for the morning then?
Yep, let's do it.
Um, I've heard Andrew Huberman talk about it. He says like one of the worst things you can do as soon as you wake up is to not get up and out of bed. It seems very important, especially to him, that as soon as you wake up, you need to get up, get kind of moving, and just not go on your phone in bed. I'm not too sure what the mechanisms are, but he says like when you're lying down, your body kind of loses this like alertness that it kind of has when it's more upright and like walking or sitting upright. Um, so if you just stay in bed, you're just going to carry on having that feeling of tiredness and stuff. So it's important just to get up and get out straight away.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I think it's mad because I feel like nowadays, especially most people our age, like they wake up and the first thing you do is go on your phone.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I just think I think going on your phone in particular is detrimental because when you wake up, you're kind of at this baseline dopamine level where you know you you want to do things because you'll get dopamine from doing them. So your desire to get up and get started with your day, at least in some part, is going to be due to the dopamine in your system. And I think the issue with checking your phone straight away is that you don't have to do anything and then you get some dopamine, which kind of wires you. It kind of gets your brain in a mode where it doesn't want to put the effort in, even to do something as simple as get out of bed, simply because you're giving it what it wants without even having to put that effort in. So it
Hmm.
kind of takes away the reason to get out of bed straight away. Whereas if you don't have that to do, then you know you're going to be more motivated to get out of bed because you can't get some pleasure straight away without having to get out of bed.
Yeah, that's important. I find myself struggling with that. I've got like a separate alarm clock to my phone, and I'll turn that off, and then my phone's right there, and I'll I'll get it out, and then I'll pick it up, and usually I'll pick like my reasoning is, oh, I'm gonna pick it up and go on it just to go on Spotify and get music playing in my ear so I can just crack on, get up. But maybe that's even bad because it's just dopamine straight away. Although sometimes I'll like the night before I'll turn my phone off completely because I've got a separate alarm clock. I don't have to worry about not being able to wake up on time, which is kind of helpful. And I don't know how true it is, but some people think turning your phone off completely and putting it in like a drawer or at the other side of the room can improve your quality of sleep. Um,
Yeah,
I'm not
potentially. Yeah.
too sure on like if that's true or not, but maybe it's a bit of a placebo at this point for me. But sometimes I feel like it does help me. Oh yeah, just on phones as well. I remember, I think it was a few years ago now, like seeing a tweet from like Kanye West or like a video of him talking, and he was saying he wonders how much more people. Like, he wonders how much more creative people would be if they didn't go on their phone for the first hour of waking up. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's. I think it's a good point, and probably doesn't just go to creativity. It probably you can generalize that to how much more of anything that requires effort and motivation would people do if they didn't go on their phones straight away in the morning, because I think it is to do with kind of the dopamine system, as I explained. And I think when you jack it up with some stimulation straight away, it does take away your motivation to actually put some effort in to do things.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's true. And on to the next morning habit we think people should maybe include.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
right, so what I've got is, well, these aren't necessarily in any specific order, but one that we've talked about before is getting sunlight in within the first hour of waking up. Like, wake up, do the things you might need to do straight away, and within that first hour, it's good to get outside, not wearing sunglasses. It doesn't have to be directly looking at the sun and like gazing at it for 10 minutes straight, but just getting sunlight indirectly at least, with no UV protection, is really good for your circadian rhythm. And I think it's like, obviously it's true with the circadian rhythm, but like we talked about before the podcast as well, how it's just nice to get outside and go for a walk in the morning as well, getting that fresh air and like just breathing in and like looking at the sky and just fucking hearing the birds sing and all that shit. It's like it just sets my day up really nicely, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was thinking about this as like when I was planning for the episode, and I came across this video of Andrew Huberman talking about it, and I feel like this quote from him really kind of highlights how much he really values it. So the quote is, "Getting sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning is absolutely vital to mental and physical health. It's perhaps the most important thing that any of us can and should do in order to promote metabolic well-being, promote positive function of your hormonal system, and get your mental health steering in the right direction." So he obviously considers it to be one of the most crucial things, and there are a couple of reasons for that. And from like a physiological perspective, the benefit would be kind of it boosts your cortisol, which is commonly known as a stress hormone, and people, there might be some negative associations with that, but there's an inevitable spike in cortisol that you experience at least once every 24-hour cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's best to experience that early in the day because it promotes wakefulness in the morning, and it also helps your immune system. Cortisol does. And yeah, so you want to experience this early in the day, because if you don't, then you're likely to get a big boost in stress later on in the day, which isn't supposed to be helpful.
Yeah,
And yeah, as that's also about the circadian rhythm being important, so it helps to kind of regulate your body's circadian rhythm. And I've definitely noticed for me that when I implement this, it's a lot easier for me to get up in the mornings if I've been getting sunlight around that time in previous days.
yeah. I think one thing you missed out that's quite important is humans also discussed how, like you said, if you don't get this cortisol spike earlier on in the day, it will inevitably happen in the evening. And there's a big bit of research on it, and there's a really high correlation between a cortisol spike later on in the day and depression. Um, that's not to say that if you're depressed, getting sunlight in the morning is going to solve the problems, but it's like something
Could do
that's
more than you
worthwhile.
think, to be fair. I think it probably would make a massive difference. And I feel like this is probably the main reason for why people are more depressed in the winter,
Mm,
because the mornings are dark. And for a lot of people, if you get up at 7, 8 a.m., and the sun hasn't risen yet during the winter in the UK. So yeah, I think that's definitely a big issue. And you can, I'm seriously considering next winter, like when it starts to get really dark in the morning, get some sort of bright light, which is obviously not as good as the sun, but just to kind of get that going as much as possible, because
yeah,
I've definitely noticed like a big improvement since the days have gotten a little bit longer and the sun's been rising earlier. But in the UK, we have this 4 month period where the sun doesn't rise till like 8 9 a.m. So
Yeah,
it's quite
stupid.
brutal.
Yeah, and like you said, you can, if you have to get up before the sunrise, you can substitute it with extremely bright lights. It's not going to be a perfect substitute, but just literally sitting there. Is it around 10 minutes you want almost?
Yeah, so we can get into the specific protocol for it. So a minimum of 2 minutes. So on a very sunny day, even he even said that 60 seconds on a really sunny day would probably do you, but probably on a really sunny day, I'd say at least 2 minutes. And then he said 10 minutes is better, and then 30 minutes would be fantastic. But yeah, it's important to note that it's dependent on conditions. So what I kind of gathered from this to get general recommendations of on a sunny day, you'll probably get away with 5 to 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and on a cloudy day, you probably want to aim for more like 15 to 20 minutes. I'd say as general recommendations. And an important thing to note is I've heard humans say you want to go outside and get indirect sunlight, especially on cloudy days, not just on cloudy days as well, but especially on cloudy days.
Right.
And I haven't heard him explain exactly why, but I think it would be because on sunny days, if you get direct sunlight through the window, then you're probably going to get a fair amount of stimulation because it's bright enough. Whereas on cloudy days, if you only view it through the window, then it's not going to be enough. So yeah, it's important to note that this is not the same thing as viewing light and viewing outside light through the window, because just I think the overall amount of photons is just not as much. And I think you can even get like an app on your phone where you can measure the amount of photons being shown in the camera,
What?
or
Oh,
the
that's
level of
sick.
brightness in some way. So
Yeah.
you can test it out yourself. But supposedly, viewing through the window, I think it's just nowhere near as good. And it's probably fine on a really sunny day if you're getting light directly through the window, because
Mm.
that'll be bright enough. But on a cloudy day, definitely want to get outside and view kind of the light directly, because even if the sun is hidden, it's still like the overall amount of photons coming in is going to be way more than if you're inside.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cloudy days have more outside have more photons than artificial light inside.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I never knew. I knew Huberman talks about it quite a lot, and like he's very much like he thinks as a foundation of anyone's day. But I didn't know he was like so. I don't know what the word is. So passionate about it being incorporated into every single person's life.
Yeah,
Well, I'm going to make sure I do it every morning now.
yeah,
But I try to be fair. It's easy to be fair though. Now that I've been off for Easter, it's easier to like just get up and like in a relaxing way and just go for a walk. And like it might go on for like 20 minutes rather than like 5 or 10. But when you've got uni at 9, you fucking rushed and shit.
yeah. I mean, I suppose if you got uni at 9, you leave at what 8:30, you're still getting outside and getting light in your eyes. So
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'm just being a bit of a bitch and giving excuses.
yeah, but yeah, definitely an important habit. And kind of going on with that, I think so. Obviously, you want to get outside to view light, but specifically walking outside or actually any self-generated motion, so it could be running or cycling outside, um, has some benefits as well. Specifically, it's called forward ambulation, where basically you get what's called an optic flow, where you see objects passing through your visual field, and you get a similar thing with other senses, where basically you have a sensory experience passing by you. And this has been shown in various studies to reduce activity in the amygdala, which is part of the brain responsible for fear and anxiety. And I think going on a walk in the morning, it will get you, because you're doing something active, so it kind of gets your heart rate up a little bit and gets you feeling a bit more alert, um, and also gets you and reduces anxiety by reducing activity in the amygdala. So you get that kind of ideal state where you're alert but not anxious. So yeah, I think, and obviously if you go for a walk, you're going to get that sunlight in your eyes, so you get the
Mm.
benefits from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's another good thing to do if you can.
Yeah, hit two birds with one stone. Is that, this might be a bit of a stupid question, is that like when you say things passing through your visual field, is that just because you're walking past them, or do you need like birds flying past and like cars going past, or
It's just because you're walking past them.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Supposedly you can get the same thing indoors, but just because there's not nearly as much space,
Yeah, I guess your
it's
visual
not as
field is kind
effective.
of
Yeah,
confined as well when you're inside.
yeah, and obviously you don't get the benefit of getting the sunlight. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
a walk or some sort of activity outside in the morning is definitely a positive thing.
yeah, and that should help increase your body temperature a little bit, which also, what's the word? Also helps to like trigger that cortisol spike in the morning. And we've already talked about the benefits of that.
Yeah,
It's one thing that I've only realised, well, I heard like a few months ago, and I've tried to incorporate it, is like when you're sleeping and shit, you don't have time to drink because you're asleep, obviously. But you get quite dehydrated when you're sleeping for 6 to 9 hours, depending on how long you're going for. But one thing I found that really helped me is as soon as I wake up, I'll just drink like a pint of water. I don't know what the recommended intake is going to be, if it's like a litre or a pint, but I think just a glass of water will definitely help everybody just to like rehydrate your body. Some people call it like an internal shower, almost.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just
I
a
think
hot
that's
bath.
definitely a good idea. You're going to be dehydrated when you wake up, and if you get caught up in trying to do other things, yeah, there you go. It made me want to drink some water as well when when you started saying that. But but yeah, it's easy to kind of get caught up in the responsibilities of the day and even forget to have water for a few hours, and you
Mm,
might end up feeling really tired and drowsy. And like the simple reason is because you're dehydrated. So yeah, it's definitely a good habit to build in the morning, and perhaps even getting some kind of electrolytes in. So I
mm,
personally have just an electrolyte supplement, so it's just got salt, potassium um, in it, and I know you like to put some sort of salts in your water.
yeah,
Um,
Himalayan rock salt. I'll just sprinkle a little bit in. But I prefer doing it in bottles because then you can shake it and it dissolves it. Whereas when you do it in a glass, it's just at the bottom. You drink the water and it tastes alright, and then you get the last drop and you're just like solid
yeah,
as fuck.
yeah, but it's important to get some electrolytes because
Mm,
when you excrete from your body, whether that be through going to the toilet or sweating, like the fluid that you're getting rid of is like, if you ever taste it, then it's quite salty. So you know that you're sweating out a lot of
is that the only
you're
thing
sweating
you're
out.
tasting?
Yeah, yeah, I did some good prep for this podcast. Let's just say that. But yeah, like if you're sweating, you can taste like
It's a
on
bit
your lips
salty.
that it's
Yeah,
that it's salty. So the water you're getting rid of comes with electrolytes, and electrolytes are just crucial to basically how everything works in your body. So yeah,
yeah,
definitely good to get them in at the same time as hydrating.
yeah. There's quite a few companies now. I don't know how many that, maybe not quite a few, but there's a few companies now that are quite big in like, some of them sponsor different podcasts, and they do like electrolyte supplements, and they do like little sachets, and people put them in their drinks and have them once a day or like throughout the day and shit. Um, but yeah, do you just have those little tablet things, don't you, in the tubes?
Yeah, I've just got some offline Mind Protein. I'm pretty sure all kind of supplement places do them, but
Right,
yeah,
right.
just a little tablet with different salts and electrolytes in them. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's good to have. And I say that's especially important if you're not eating straight away after waking up, or
right.
especially if you're going to exercise before you eat, then you definitely need to get some electrolytes in.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Should we move on to the cold exposure?
Yeah, sure. You have a natural peak of your body temperature. I can't remember exactly when it is. I think it's like maybe 8 to 10 hours after waking. I'm not sure. You
Yeah, I
know
think
that.
it's something like that.
Yeah. So basically, when you do
10 to
something that
12. Yeah.
yeah, when you do something that raises your body temperature before that, so early in the day in the morning, it basically pushes your circadian rhythm earlier. And then if you do something that raises your body temperature later at night, then that pushes your circadian rhythm back. So, and then with cold exposure, kind of counterintuitively, people might think it cools your body temperature, but it actually basically signals to it forces your body to warm itself back up after you've been in the cold. So it actually increases your body temperature. So it's good for pushing your circadian rhythm forward. So if you have a cold shower in the morning, it should be easier to get up earlier the next day. And also, kind of what we were saying about it's good to get that cortisol boost in the morning through viewing sunlight. Um, you also get that from having a cold shower. Obviously, quite a stressful experience, but it shocks you, gives you a big boost in adrenaline and big boost in dopamine, which is good to have earlier in the day.
Yeah, it definitely sets the day up quite well. I've not. I went through a phase where I was really disciplined. Like, I'd have cold showers every day for 6 months, and I didn't have a warm shower for fucking months. But recently, I've just been a little bit bitch. It's just difficult. Although I feel like cold plunges would be easier for me. I need to get one of those like Lumi tanks or whatever. But yeah, cold showers. Yeah, getting to my point. They're also just fucking refreshing. Like obviously it helps you that cortisol spike come earlier, but it does just wake you up. It shocks the body so much that you do actually wake up. And then once you've done the cold shower, you just feel so fucking nice and refreshed, and it sets your day up perfectly. I
Yeah,
think we talked about before, like having that discipline and then executing what you need to do, even though you don't want to do it, just gives you that little win in your mind. And like with that little win, you can like use that as motivation to go on to the next thing and the next task that you don't necessarily want to do, but you have to.
yeah, I think definitely winning those small battles throughout the day will help keep you motivated and build momentum. Just back to kind of why they make you feel good. I think that mass like afterwards you do feel just really energized and ready to go, and I feel like that's definitely from the dopamine boost as well. So apparently there's been studies on it, and it gives you a 2.5 to 5 times boost in your dopamine, and this boost lasts for a very long time, so several hours. So unlike when you're just doing these consumatory activities like scrolling on your phone or eating a piece of chocolate, or I don't know what other activities people might do to boost their dopamine, but you
Gaming.
get a very short boost. And yeah, so this is a long lasting boost which is going to keep you alert and keep you motivated for the first few hours of the day, where you can kind of build up that momentum and get off to a good start.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't have like doesn't have like longer lasting effects than like you said, like chocolate, sex, and I think even cocaine as well.
Yeah, definitely longer lasting. Caffeine would boost it by maybe like a small boost, so maybe like a 20% boost over baseline, and then like sex or pornography or something boosts it probably like 200% or something, 300%. I'm kind of pulling these numbers out of my ass. I have heard them before, but I don't have the exact numbers on my head right now. But yeah, so kind of comparatively, cold exposure gives you a massive boost, kind of in the same bracket as what might be characteristic of like pleasurable drugs or even sex, which are obviously very pleasurable activity. So it gives you kind of comparable comparable boost to that. Yeah, I hope my mum's not standing outside my room. I should say that.
Uh, but yeah, so definitely a long lasting effect and quite a big increase of dopamine from the baseline level. Um, in the cold shower, do you think it's important that people like have a strong focus on their breath work? Obviously, Wim Hof is quite a big figure, and he talks about how important it is to get the breathing under control and stuff.
Yeah,
Should people use it as a few minutes of like meditation almost, or does it really not matter to everybody?
yeah, I think it. So this is something I've heard Huberman talk about as well, and he says it kind of depends what you're trying to get out of the cold exposure. So one of the benefits is it can boost your metabolism, and if you want that effect, if that's the effect you care about the most, and it's actually good to like shiver as much as possible, because that's going to help burn calories. Whereas if you want kind of getting into the psychological benefits of cold showers, you basically, the benefit is you expose yourself to an extremely high stress stimulus, and so you feel what it's like to have this high adrenaline, high cortisol in your system, and you learn to be able to deal with these states better, which supposedly kind of prepares you for states in real life where you might be stressed. When you're
Mm.
used to being in that high stress, high adrenaline state, you're able to be more calm in it. So if you're trying to get this kind of stress resilience benefit from doing cold exposure, then it's good to try and relax as much as possible. And I think that's
Yeah.
where kind of being mindful of the experience is going to be really helpful, and just trying to relax as much as possible and control your breathing. That's going to allow you to kind of stay in the cold shower longer and be used to the high stress environment. Don't know what your thoughts are on the best kind of breathing practices for cold showers.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for showers, I'd say like the box breathing method possibly, where you kind of breathe in for X number of seconds, hold it for X number of seconds, breathe out for X number of seconds, and then kind of repeat. I think um, in terms of like if you're plunging yourself into a cold piece of like a body of water that's freezing, some people recommend not necessarily doing breathing exercises like that because they can. Well, they recommend not doing the Wim Hof breathing exercise because it can be kind of dangerous and make you lightheaded and make you pass out. You don't want to do that if you're in water because you can drown.
Yeah,
But just simply through the nose and out through the mouth is something that's quite. It's something so easy that I think everybody can do it. So maybe just start with that, everybody, and then
yeah,
experiment with box breathing or like there's like the 4-7-8 method or the 4-6-8 method. In for 4, hold for 6, out for 8. That's one I quite like. Um,
yeah. I think overall, just trying to calm your breathing and to calm your mind and your body
mm,
whilst you're experiencing
yeah,
the kind of
just
stressful
relaxing the
stimulus.
muscles.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best way to go for most people. You've done quite a bit of like cold plunges in cold water. How would you say that compares to cold showers in your experience?
I find cold plunges easier. Like me and my cousin would go. We haven't been for a while because it's not necessarily as cold anymore, and we've been doing saunas recently. But we'd go to this place called Sale, and it's a bit of a distance there. Like it'd be a 20-minute cycle, or it'd be like a half-hour bus journey and a walk. And like because you're going there to do that thing, you kind of just have to get in, otherwise you waste the journey. Like there's
Yeah,
no point in not getting in when you're there. And you just walk in. We'll do 3.5 minutes, give or take, where we just kind of go in and we'll sit there. Um, I've heard Huberman talk about if you just kind of sit there, you develop this thermal barrier on all of your skin, so it kind of makes it easier to resist the cold. Whereas, like you said earlier, if you're moving, that thermal barrier gets broken, so it feels colder to your skin. Um, but yeah, we just sit there and I'll just breathe. I'll just go, and then we just kind of generally talk, and then we'll laugh to each other because about how cold it is, and then get out, and that's kind of it. But
yeah,
showers, it's just nice being under such nice warm water that I'm just like, oh fuck that, I'll just leave it for today. So I find
yeah.
cold plunges easier.
It's easier to cop out of a cold shower, whereas even
Yeah,
if a cold plunge is more intense. Like once
mm.
you're there, you're gonna do it, aren't you?
Yeah. I feel like because it is harder, I just want to do it more almost. But that doesn't apply to everything else in my life. But when it comes to that cold plunge, it does.
Interesting. Should we move on
Yeah.
to the next activity?
Yeah. We got one, or
Is there anything else you think is ideal to do in the morning?
I'd just say stretching for people, waking up and like incorporating some sort of stretch routine. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full body routine, but like I know everyone in the world will have like a lower back problem or like a shoulder problem or like everyone has some sort of thing that like is annoying them in one of their joints. Just spending 5 minutes where you like look online for little routines you can do. I think that's quite important that people should. I think it's so important that people should try and incorporate it in the morning. Like if you've got bad shoulders, you can get like resistance bands and go on all fours and put a resistance band between your arms, and then like lift one arm up and just kind of do circles with it, and that will just like get the muscle going. Just a bit of physio almost.
Yeah, yeah, probably good to focus on getting a couple of little almost rehabilitative exercises in, just to,
Yeah,
it's probably good to have that as part of your morning routine,
yeah,
because moving on to kind of the next thing, like meditation is something that people could do at any point throughout the day, but I personally like to do it in the morning, and I think it's for the same reason that it's it's probably easier to build. I find it easier to build habits when I place them in the morning, because you can kind of have the momentum with the day. So if it's in the first 5 things you do in the day, then I feel like you're more likely to end up doing it. Whereas later in the day, you kind of estimate on what you'll end up doing is going to kind of be off compared to the actual time, because there's more time for different things to happen, and needs to be thrown off your routine. So yeah, I personally like to meditate in the morning, and I think it has kind of a lot of benefits whether you do it in the morning or later in the day. But I think perhaps the benefit of doing it in the morning is it kind of gives you a chance to calm your mind and also just become a bit more aware of your mind, because not all the time, it's not going to make you feel kind of elated straight away by doing this meditation, or you're not going to be always super thrilled about it right away. But I think what it does do is, even if you are in a bit of you become more aware of your emotional state, and you realize it might be one of those days where your mind is just kind of all over the place, and you can kind of be aware of that and kind of be ready for that to come up throughout the day. So yeah,
yeah,
I think that's one benefit of it.
yeah. It's interesting. Like, even if you kind of do the same thing over 3 days, one of those days you'll just wake up in like a weird mood, and like something that will just be off with you, even though like there's no significant event that's necessarily happened. Um, and would you say that kind of a way to counteract the negative consequences of that weird feeling is just to meditate in the morning, set
Yeah,
yourself up right?
I think it just gives you that awareness and allows you to it gives kind of arms you with the knowledge that, yeah, I might not be feeling optimal today. So as the day goes on, I might feel like avoiding doing something that I should do, or I might get angry at someone when for no good reason, or just feel feelings of frustration, or sometimes it's just one of those days where you find it really hard to. So if you do a meditation where you focus on your breath, you'll just find, like, for 90% of it, you're just kind of zoned out, not
Mm,
really focusing, and you just realize, oh, my focus is a bit off today. So and it can allow you to, for example, when you sit down to do work and your focus is a bit off, you can kind of avoid catastrophizing that, like, something's seriously wrong, when you're just like, oh right, I just woke up today and I feel this certain way. But yeah, it's still important to, even though I don't feel the best today, it's still important that I end up doing the work. Whereas if you don't have that awareness, you might start to think, really have a lot of self-doubt, and yeah, end up
mm,
procrastinating
yeah,
a
well,
little
should I
bit
just
more.
drop out of my course? Things like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you can go all the way with it. Yeah, you can start to question your motivation, but yeah, you can just, if you meditate, you can kind of realize that, yeah, this is just a day where I don't feel as motivated, but there's nothing crazy about that. And back to focus, I think it definitely has been shown to actually
mm,
increase your focus. And I suppose kind of what you're doing is focusing on your breath. So it makes sense that you're kind of training the part of your brain which is able to maintain focus. And going back to what might be some of the downsides of going on your phone, I really do feel like meditation is an antidote to kind of the attention
mm,
um, deficit that you experience from going on, particularly with like TikTok and Reels and stuff nowadays, where very short, entertaining videos, they just kind of zap your attention span. Whereas I feel like with meditation, you're taking that back and you're taking back that awareness. So yeah, that's definitely another benefit.
yeah. What's the meditation routine that you kind of follow?
Yeah, so I mostly use this app called Medito. It's completely free. It's basically just, there's different meditations on there, but it's very simple, kind of just mindfulness, focus on your breath. And yeah, I think just keeping it simple like that. And you don't even need an app or anything. You can just do it without and set a timer. I'd say it's good to set a timer so you have like a preset time, so you
Yeah,
don't like do a couple minutes and decide, oh, I can't be asked. Like having a
right. Yeah,
preset time is good, but yeah, I think having the app, it just it's nothing too crazy. It just reminds you every few minutes to kind of bring back your attention if your mind has wandered. And I also think it's good because it tells you like how many times you've meditated and how many total minutes and what streak you're on, so that can kind of help motivate you to keep going.
oh, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Um, what do you do? Like 5 minutes, or was it like 10 minutes? Or
Yeah, 10 minutes is like pretty standard. I have gone through periods where I've already built up and done like 15, 20 minute sessions, but yeah, I think 10 minutes is a good. I mean, for a starting point, yeah, just start off with the shortest ones on there. So it's even got some on there which are just like 3 minutes, 5 minutes. So
Mhm.
yeah, you can just start with really short ones to build up the habit. But yeah, over time, I think 10 minutes is kind of a solid baseline to build a habit of in the morning.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder what if there's like a minimum amount or like a Goldilocks zone of how many minutes a week. Like we didn't mention it earlier, but the cold exposure. But I think when the recommendation for cold exposure is 11 minutes per week. And I think that's submerged in a body of water rather than just cold showers. But 11 minutes total per week is where you see like the greatest benefits. That doesn't have to be in 11 minutes total. It could be just 3 sessions or like 4 sessions and stuff. It could even be maybe 6 sessions. I'm not too sure, but 11 minutes total per week is where the real benefits of cold exposure kind of come into play. I wonder if there's any research on what is the optimal amount of meditation you can do per week.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with it myself, but to be honest, I think, you know, meditation is kind of a means of building up your mindfulness. And maybe we can get into the benefits specifically about mindfulness, but kind of the goal through it is to become a more mindful and present person and just more aware throughout your daily life. So, this is something Sam Harris talks about, how, like, as a meditator, the goal is to kind of end up like meditating all the time throughout the day, no matter what you're doing. You're in this kind of mindful, aware state. So I think ultimately that's a goal. And in terms of a daily habit, it's good to have the daily practice of sitting down for 10 minutes and doing that, because that can build up the habit. But I think overall, for people to live a kind of a happier life and have better well-being and to not be so stressed out, would be to kind of aim to be in this more mindful state throughout the day, just kind of focused on the present moment, aware of the present moment, rather than kind of worrying about the past or the future.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. It's weird though. Sometimes it seems kind of like counterintuitive to me. Like meditation is kind of all in my mind. It's about like sitting down and being by yourself and thinking about nothing. But then like Sam Harris recommends, it's almost like you want to meditate throughout your whole day. But if you're going about your day, you need to be focused on different things. Where in my mind, meditation's been about focus on nothing.
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't say. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely different forms of meditation. And yeah, I can see what you're saying there, and I think it's kind of inevitable throughout the day. You'll be in different states. Sometimes you'll be very focused on something, and sometimes your mind will be a bit more free and wandering. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But I would say just being even on a task you are really focused on, or even on the complete opposite side of the spectrum where you're just like maybe going for a walk and you're not really focused on anything, just being kind of aware and present in the moment, rather than kind of
Mm.
being allowing your attention to drift to things outside of the moment. Like I said, kind of thinking about the past or worrying about the future or different possibilities, worrying about things. I think it's good regardless of what you're doing to kind of be for your attention to be in the moment. And I think regardless of what activity you're doing, that's probably a beneficial thing.
Yeah, I didn't finish the Sam Harris human episode, but I started it, and Sam Harris was talking about how there's almost this duality of the human experience. How when you're experiencing something, people aren't in the moment, and they almost say to themselves, "Oh, I'm really enjoying this, whatever it is, the view of the mountain or this movie," and that kind of seems like you're enjoying it, but because you've identified yourself in the thought, you've almost created a duality of of yourself. Rather than just sitting there and enjoying it, you've said to yourself, "I am enjoying this," which is different. Which is I thought was really interesting. I never thought about things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Perhaps rather than directly experiencing the enjoyment, you're trying to like you're almost just thinking about it too much.
Mm,
Whereas rather than just being aware and experiencing it,
yeah.
um, and I think getting on to just another benefit of meditation, I think a big part of it is kind of comes with the awareness and being present is also a sense of detachment and from your emotions and your thoughts.
Mm,
So a common way people um, describe it is rather than, you know, thinking to yourself, I am angry, you think, I feel the emotion of anger, or
mm,
that could apply to any emotion. So you're almost allow yourself to be one step removed as the observer of the emotion rather than caught up in the emotion. And the same goes with thoughts as well. So if you have negative thoughts, rather than thinking this thought is inherently true and defines kind of who you are in the moment, you're able just to be the conscious awareness that is observing this thought without kind of being caught up in the wave of it. So yeah, and it's like to visualize it, you could think about being caught up directly in the storm versus being on land looking out at sea, looking at the storm, that storm being kind of your thoughts and emotions, so
mm.
you don't get so caught up in things. And I think that allows you to make better decisions and just overall be more have better emotional control.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Do you think maybe that I don't know, me and my cousin have talked about things like this before, and he's like, I don't think he meditates at all, but over the last year, he's seen it, and I've seen it as well, a massive improvement in like just not getting frustrated at little things, and just kind of he I think he subscribes a lot to like the Stoic way of thinking and that sort of philosophy, and he'll just think, oh, okay, it's just part of life. This is just part of the destiny of my life almost, and like this, it's just fate that that thing happened, even if it was something annoying. He doesn't necessarily get annoyed at it as much, but he doesn't meditate. Do you think people can kind of get to a point where they just rationalize things and just detach without the need for meditation?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You can kind of get that without necessarily meditating. I think meditation is a tool to get it, but for example, someone like Jocko Willink, he's always talking about detachment, and he doesn't meditate, or it's not been something historically that he's done,
Mm,
but he's just realized the benefits of that in life and kind of developed that mindset. So yeah, it's not necessarily essential, and perhaps a sense of detachment throughout the day is a good kind of perspective for people to develop regardless of meditation. But I think, in your practice of meditation, you can, it is a practice which just gives you the time to sit down and kind of realize that there is this separation between your awareness and your emotions.
right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good, important point. Try and become detached. Um, right. Any other morning routines or?
um yeah, I'd say that's good for now. That's good for the morning. Kind of going into, because obviously there's different routines and perhaps other things people might do in the morning, but
Yeah,
it
it's
kind
going
of
to be
depends on
personalised.
people's schedules. I say that goes for meditation as well.
Yeah, But yeah, so moving on to the next part, which is kind of like the daytime, what things we kind of think you should include in the day. Um, like we just said, it's going to be very much dependent on the type of things that you need to do during the day. If you've got a job, if you're at school, if you've got parental responsibilities or anything like that. But one thing I heard David Goggins talk about that he does throughout the day, probably morning and night as well. I think Joe Rogan asked him, "Do you go on vacation?" And like the obvious answer people would think is no. And then surprisingly, I heard Goggins say, "Yeah, I do." But he says he doesn't go on holidays on abroad or stuff, but he goes on vacations throughout the day. If he's taking a shower or if he's doing something like tasks that he doesn't need to necessarily think about, he'll take what he calls mental aid stations, and he'll just use that time to be doing that task and just completely forget about the world and forget about everything that's going on in the world and detach from all of it and just have time, even if it's just a few minutes, to just think about nothing and like breathe and just take the time to relax. I think that's quite important. I don't know if you've tried it all. I don't really think I've ever done it properly in the past, but I've kind of done it in terms of like maybe in the shower, just having a few breaths and just relaxing. But do you think it's important to do mental aid stations throughout the day?
Yeah, I've never tried that specifically myself, but I definitely can see why it'd be beneficial. Maybe relates to what we talk about in terms of detachment. It kind of allows you to detach and also kind of reset. I think it can be easy to get caught up in your daily activities, and like mentally you might start to get a bit off track. And I think just spending some time away from everything, like spending time away from your phone, taking a few minutes to just really clear your mind, can
Mm.
definitely be beneficial, kind of as a reset, so you can go back into the next activity of the day with a clear mind, not kind of caught up in the momentum of things that pop up throughout the day.
Yeah, wonderfully put. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever get to. I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I won't go on holiday and just take mental aid stations like David Goggins. But saying that, though, I feel like it's not that difficult to go a year or two without a holiday. Like, most people did it for COVID and stuff. But yeah, that's just another tangent. But yeah, moving on to one thing that I don't know if you could call it a habit, but it's more so I don't know what you like a lifestyle choice, I guess you could maybe call it. I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about how he believes most people need to be presentable throughout the whole day. Um, you need to represent yourself to the world in like a respectable way. And I've catch myself not doing this quite often. And me and my housemate Jake were talking about it. He was saying like he works from home quite a lot for his job, and recently he's tried to, even if he's just working from home and not going out to a cafe or like a place to work, he'll even just get changed into his jeans and just sit in the kitchen doing his work, and it kind of gives him that. It kind of sets him up to think that he's in a more professional setting. And I find myself going to the library sometimes just in my trackies and shit and not really caring about the way I look or whatever. But Peterson talks about how it's important to be respectable, get yourself ready and look presentable, and that will kind of give you a bit of momentum. What are your thoughts on that? Like, should comfort be desired when you're trying to just do hard work in the library for uni, or should you kind of always be presentable?
Yeah, it's an interesting debate because there certainly are very successful people that just whose attitude to these type of things is basically it doesn't matter what you do as long as you put the work in, and kind of messing around with these little things which aren't actually that important, isn't necessarily going to get you to where you want to go. So there's one set of people that kind of go by that philosophy, and I think that's fine. But I would say I'd fall more to the side of believing that there is value in kind of taking pride in yourself like that, and kind of, there's this idea that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you make an effort to present yourself in a professional way, then you're likely to act in kind of a more professional way throughout your life. And yeah, I think I definitely resonate with kind of like if I want to have a productive day, then I'll like put some trousers on, like groom myself, make sure I'm fresh, get dressed, and then go to the library. Or even sometimes when I'm at home, then doing all that stuff, I find gets me in kind of this mood where I feel like I've kind of taken some pride in myself, and yeah, look good, feel good, get some shit done. I think that's the
Mm.
attitude.
Yeah, look good, feel good, perform good, as they say. Yeah, yeah. And also, just a thing like if you're presentable, there's always a chance that you might be out and about and you might meet someone that ends up becoming part of your network, and you just create that connection, which is good. And then you also might meet a fucking person you're interested in getting into an intimate relationship with, and you sort of want to look your best if you're going to be meeting that person, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Don't
Yeah,
want to be looking like a bum. But yeah, I feel like it's just a kind of a general attitude of um almost this like stand up straight with your shoulders back kind of attitude, just kind of taking pride in the way you carry yourself.
yeah,
And that's probably a great thing to do just in terms of your mindset of how you want to approach life. So yeah, I think it's a good daily habit to have, to kind of take care of yourself and take some pride in your appearance, even if some people might consider it trivial, but yeah, I think it has some value.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I definitely noticed like over Christmas when I had to do my assignments and shit, if I tried to do them in the kitchen and like I wouldn't even get changed out of my trackies all day, I'd just be sitting there eating food and snacking throughout the day and just kind of being a bit of a like sloth. There's a big difference between that and actually getting ready and going to the local library, and like the amount of work we got done and the quality of it was hugely different.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good habit to have.
So, yeah, look fresh, everybody, please. Saying that, I've just drawn pen on myself like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, I've heard someone say that, like, what was the quote? It was something like, you know, doing what you can to look good is a sign of respect for yourself and for everyone that has to look at you throughout the day. Um, so yeah, I feel like there is something to be said for taking some pride in the way you
Mm.
look, and also feel like it comes with that attitude of carrying yourself with some respect and some pride as well, which will probably carry into your performance.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Uh, yeah, so one thing that you definitely want to talk about was if you're scheduling your day and thinking about what you need to do, you should take some time to do deep work. Do you want to kind of explain that idea and stuff?
Yeah, so deep work. I think the term originally comes from Carl Newport. Basically, the idea of deep work is to sit down for an extended period of time, maybe an hour and a half, even 2 hours. So not like a ridiculously long time to be working, considering a typical job is 8-ish hours a day. But basically, the argument is that the way most people spend that time at work is in a very distracted state. So they'd be checking their phone or checking their emails every few minutes, and it stops them from getting into this kind of deep focus where they're solely focused on one task. And this kind of attention switching, I feel like, really does kill your focus. And so the practice would be to have a specific time where you set aside all distractions, turn off your phone, put it away somewhere, turn off like if you're someone in the workplace, like turn off your emails for a set amount of time, just to really focus down on one task, and that's when you're going to get the most productivity for that time, with a high focus. Have you experimented much with when you sit down to work, really like removing all distractions to try and focus more?
Uh, to be fair, I've not experimented in terms of removing all distractions. I've done it like maybe once or twice when I've been in the library. Like I'll, if I go with my housemate Emmy, we sometimes will like give each other our phones so we don't have our own phones, so then we can't access our own phone. And then we'll do like half an hour of work straight, and then we can give the phones back or whatever. But I've experimented quite a few times with the Pomodoro technique, which is where you work for 45 minutes, 15-minute break, work for 45 minutes, 15-minute break. Um, and one thing I like to do sometimes is I'll watch a YouTube video of a guy doing that, and it'll be like nice, relaxing music, and it'll just be videoing him on his laptop for 45 minutes. And it's not he's got a nice apartment and a nice view and stuff, but it still is a bit of a distraction because I could just watch that video if I wanted to. Although I don't, because it's like a bit of a boring video, it's still nice to look at, and it is a bit of a distraction. The music as well was kind of like hitting that dopamine at the same time. So maybe I should experiment with just doing purely no distractions.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's fair enough. And there's a different people work differently, and sometimes, I've heard Huberman talk about this, how depending on what kind of state you're in, it might actually be beneficial to have that some sort of something stimulating in your environment to keep you a bit more alert. So if you have music playing, I actually use this website called, what's it called? Brain.fm, which is basically this like it's kind of like Spotify, but it's just this music which is specifically created for accessing different brain states.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah, I think that's good research that it does help you like focus. So it's got different settings, but I always go for the focus one if I'm doing work.
is it
And
like the different
yeah,
like
it
level
allows
of
you to.
hertz?
Sorry.
Is it like the different level of hertz and like the binaural beats or whatever?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the difference is, but apparently there is. It's not exactly binaural beats. It is something unique within itself. But yeah, I definitely find, like, I think having my headphones as well, headphones on as well, blocks me out from distractions in the outside world, and I haven't got my phone on me. And obviously, the music is designed to make you focus more. I think most studies show that music doesn't help you focus, but yeah, I think with this music, because obviously that's what it's designed for, is yeah, helps me to stay a bit more focused, and also because like you can set a time on it, so I'll usually go for like 90 minutes for my deep work sessions.
Okay.
But yeah, so you can see it counting down, and then the music stops. Your session's finished. But yeah, I find that quite helpful. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily consider that really a distraction. I am still very focused on the work. And another thing that I feel like I need to do more when I'm trying to really focus is just being almost more mindful of like the mental distractions, because
Mm.
it's not just like things that come up in your environment. It will sometimes be a thought that pops up and distracts you and makes you want to get up and do something else. But yeah, I probably need to become a bit better at pushing through when kind of those mental distractions come up as well.
Yeah, yeah, I find that happens definitely to me. Where you're like, if I have something planned for like a weekend or the weekend after, if I'm doing some work, I'll just think about, oh, I could do this and I need to do this and this regarding that, and then I'll start researching something else that's to do with nothing, has nothing to do with work, but has to do with what I'm thinking about doing next week. That definitely happens to me a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think it's important to, when you're working, to push through, to see kind of the obstacle as the way, so to put it, where you see the distractions and your desire to, avoid when things get difficult, you're stuck on a certain bit of work, and you have an urge to just stop. It's important to push through that, as Huberman would call it, limbic friction, where you have this desire to kind of, do what's easy and avoid it. But yeah, it's important to also embrace the mindset that, yeah, when it is difficult, this is kind of, what is expected, and what's going to help you grow the most is pushing through this difficulty. So yeah, I think it's good to, as well, with the deep work, like setting a specific amount of time, so it's not as if you know you're you're working for like 10 hours or something. You're like, oh, the next 10 hours, yeah, I'll do this work. You set a specific amount of time. you know for some people they can probably stretch it further, but I'd say for most people, like 90 minutes to 2 hours is probably about as long as you want to go. in one session, obviously you can stop and get up and check
Yeah,
your notifications if that's something you want to do, but just removing that distraction for this period of time and specifically focusing rather than doing, treating your day like 10 hours, but every 10 minutes you're checking your phone and getting up to go and do something. Yeah. So I think it's pretty valuable to try and implement this focus work into your day, regardless of kind of what, for any kind of like knowledge work. Yeah, it's good to do.
is there like a minimum amount that's kind of recommended just to get into like a real state the way you're kind of flowing with this focus? Is it like 45 minutes minimum or like an hour minimum?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say there is a minimum, because this is something Calvin Report spoke about in the book. Because for certain people, like for their jobs, they do need to be quick at replying to emails when they come up. But even for those people, just to say, like, even if it's, you can only manage like 15 or 20 minutes realistically before you need to check your emails, it's better to sit down for that time and turn all the notifications off and sit down for 20 minutes and do the focus work, and then check your notifications after, rather than constantly having your focus broken up by these different distractions, because that's what stops you getting into this kind of focused way of being. So yeah, I think, yeah, I wouldn't, I'm not sure there's necessarily a number you could put on it. Obviously, ideally, you'd probably be doing longer than 15 or 20 minutes. But if your situation um, means that you need to be open, you need to check your emails, for example, every so often, it's probably still valuable just to, remove distractions for that short period of time and not,
Mm.
to not be interrupted.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point actually. Depends on the person, I guess. Again, um, any other things that you think people should incorporate throughout their daily routine, like for the daytime?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really spoke about exercise, have we?
No, I guess it's something that is really dependent on the person. If they go to specific classes at a gym, that might be in the evening or in the middle of the day or in the morning, or they might not have time in the evening if they've got kids, so they have to do it in the morning. But yeah, I think no matter who it is, most people, or the majority, like maybe 90% of people or 99% of people, will have time throughout the day to do some sort of rigorous exercise. It seems, even if like rigorous for one person could be like walking up a steep hill or doing some kettlebell swings or like going to the gym and hitting a weight session or whatever. But incorporating that into your life is important, I think.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the most fundamental um, habits everyone should build up, and it's gonna benefit everyone mentally and physically. I mean, I feel like nowadays everyone kind of knows the
Mm.
benefits of exercise, especially physically, but I suppose it's not so obvious the mental benefits of exercise. So, what do you think the mental benefits of exercise are?
Um, I don't know. I remember when I was a kid, like when we had like GCSEs and stuff, my dad would always be on my back about like making sure I study and revise and stuff. And he said to me, "You can finish your exams, and then you'll have however many weeks off in the summer. And do you want to spend that summer feeling guilty about what you could have done to revise and how you should have prepared, or do you want to spend that summer relaxed, knowing that you've done everything you could to be prepared and execute what you need to do?" And I think that sort of applies to exercise as well. At the end of the day, if you've been to the gym or you've done something that's equivalent to that, you're gonna feel like, oh, I don't have any guilt or regret in my mind. I'm happy that I achieved what I did because I put in the work. I think that it's the same sort of principle, and I think that's maybe one of the benefits that most people can think about on a daily basis. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and that's more to like the psychological benefits of it. I think people will just feel better about themselves, kind of happier, are more proud of themselves. And yeah, and obviously it's good psychologically when you see you're progressing towards your goals. It's going to make you feel more fulfilled and happy. So yeah, I'd definitely say that's a key benefit. And obviously, I feel like there's actually kind of a direct mental benefit where your mood is just better. You feel just more happy, more relaxed, less anxious
Yeah, you
than
get that dopamine
than
and the endorphins and stuff.
yeah, yeah, and kind of allows you to work off your stress or other emotions in kind of a healthy way. So yeah, I definitely
Mm.
think it just makes you feel a lot better mentally. And I know for me, whenever, for example, I'm ill or something and I'm not able to exercise after like 4 or 5 days or something, I really start to feel just not good mentally. And perhaps that could be due to other things, for example, like not getting outside enough, especially in the mornings.
Mm.
So it's probably a combination of things, but I definitely think not exercising is yeah, does make you feel a lot worse just in terms of mood directly. And also, so like in terms of exercise, there's different types of exercise. Obviously you have like resistance training, you also have like cardio, and then I'd say another almost category is like sports. And obviously in terms of sports you get kind of the social interaction out of them. So like, what do you think the value of sports are, specifically taking up a sport as one of the forms of exercise that you do?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I was at training, it was Wednesday night, and I was talking to this woman called Julie, who I don't know, she might be like 30s, in her 30s or something, and she's quite a small lady, so she's like obviously a lot weaker than most men there. But we were talking about how like there was a person who was new to the session and kind of was just observing rather than getting involved. And Julie was talking about when she first started, she really like sometimes she'd drive to the gym and be ready to go inside, but then she kind of have like bit of a mini panic attack and would kind of like leave because she just felt a bit like nervous and didn't want to go in and felt anxious. But through like building up a confidence doing the sport, she obviously just comes when she can come, she'll come and she'll just fucking smash it out and do the things she needs to do. I think that applies to like almost any other sport. It can be a bit daunting at times to like start a sport and meet new people, but once you kind of just face up to it and get used to that setting, it becomes a lot more comfortable. Um, I don't know. It's kind of weird though sometimes. Like I don't know how it is for you at your like gym and training and stuff. Like everyone at the gym I'll go to for jiu-jitsu, like all really friendly and stuff. But I think maybe not so much recently. But when I first started, I was a little bit more closed off, and I wouldn't necessarily ask people about like what they did as jobs and stuff, and like have like more interesting conversations. But recently, I started to do that, and it's been quite nice to actually get to know somebody without having to like necessarily be like a good friend of theirs and like meet up with them outside of jiu-jitsu, but I actually ask them about like, oh, you got kids or what do you do for work and stuff.
Yeah,
It's interesting getting to know another person's life on a small like scale like that. You know what?
yeah, it's good. I think like we obviously both do jiu-jitsu, so probably have similar kind of experiences. But but yeah, I'd say you get to meet kind of different types of people that you would meet usually in different walks of life, different age groups, different professions, and it's kind of good to be exposed to that. So yeah, I definitely do think it's a good form of social interaction. Um, and yeah, like you said, it's good to kind of get to know people a bit more. But I feel like I myself, I'm a bit more of an introverted person, so probably felt the kind of the same thing about being a bit more closed off. But I think if, especially if you go to the same classes and you see the same kind of people like multiple days a week, then yeah, you can definitely build some good friendships. And I also say, for me, because a lot of the good habits I like to do and kind of the bad stuff I stay away from. A lot of the reason we do the bad stuff, like going out and partying and drinking, is for the social aspect. So in trying to be more disciplined and have a healthier lifestyle, like one of the things you do kind of lose out on a little bit is that social interaction. So I
Mm.
feel like like jiu-jitsu has been absolutely crucial for me to kind of stay, uphold kind of a good mental health, and because I think socializing on a regular basis was like really essential to that. And yeah, jiu-jitsu is kind of a um, good outlet for that, in kind of a healthy way, whilst other kind of social activities you might end up doing with your mates, like drinking and staying up late, it's often not that good for you. So yeah, I think kind of all sports can act as that for people. Martial arts are obviously great. I think martial arts, particularly jiu-jitsu, but I suppose other martial arts as well, are things that people, maybe it's a bit more available for people to start at a slightly older age.
Mm.
Whereas if most people aren't going to start playing football, for example, when they're a little bit older in their 20s or 30s, whereas that's probably when most people end up starting jiu-jitsu. And yeah, there's obviously different benefits to different sports, but I think that social aspect that underpins a lot of sports is, yeah, definitely very important.
Yeah, it seems like a lot. Well, I don't know if it's maybe just more reported, but there's a lot of people in today's world where they seem to be extremely lonely and stuff, and it's a bit like it's a real shame for them. But like, I'm sure they've got some fucking good qualities that people would enjoy. It's just they maybe didn't find the right people to hang around with or whatever. But sports are just like you said, such an easy in just to get to meet people and just talk to them, even on like just a fucking informal like setting. You don't have to be talking about like world politics or whatever, but just having like a little joke and stuff. But I think it's also important like to put yourself out there a bit. Like if you go to these sports and stuff, you can just go and just be quiet and stay closed off. But I think people should try and like say like if they think of a joke in in that like in that particular time when they're at training, they should like say it and like get a laugh and like put themselves out there and take the risk to be humiliated on like in a really small way, because it sets you up as someone that's present in that setting and people are going to notice you. And it's not about like being noticed and being dominant or whatever, but I think it's important for people to just put themselves out there, and it's something that I want to like think I've incorporated, but should do more. I think I'll think of like a little joke to say at training, and I'll just won't say it because I'll be embarrassed, and then I'll hear someone else say something similar and they'll get laughed at. I'm like, oh, fuck's sake. But people, yeah, I think people just need to put themselves out there more, although it's difficult.
Yeah, I think I could probably do that more as well. Like, there's been different. I go through phases where sometimes I'm a bit more chatty, and sometimes
Mm.
I'm just like,
Yeah, you just want to go there.
training and not really wanting
Nothing.
to talk to people. But yeah, I definitely do think it's good to kind of get that social aspect, and especially when there's like new people around, it's good to make them feel welcome, and kind of
Mm.
builds its community spirit, which is obviously a very healthy thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's a nice thing about jiu-jitsu. I found is like when I got my fucking blue belt, I was talking to my coach and stuff. And, like, it's just mad how like is this one person has all these fucking people following him and like letting him teach them and guide them through life almost, and like they're all just crowded around and grouped around this leader, and it's just like a brotherhood and sisterhood, and it's just it just blows my mind because everyone there's just so nice, and like even when you're getting fucking choked out by a purple belt, they're still like just the nicest person ever.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like it's just such a positive thing. Like, everyone's just there to improve and to kind of cultivate their passion for this sport, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
and improve other people and cultivate their like, other people's passion as well at the same time.
yeah,
Which is
I see
nice.
nothing but good in it. So yeah, definitely
Yeah.
good to get into a sport, and I think we both recommend jiu-jitsu for someone interested.
Mm. Even it's weird though because it's such an individual sport because you're the only person on your team against one other person, and you'd think that would kind of make you a bit more selfish and like self-serving and stuff. But when you're training, everyone just wants to help each other out, and it's just lovely.
Yeah, to be fair, I think it works out a bit better than most sports for getting to know people, because let's take like a team sport like football. You're in a team of, I don't know, 11 starters, and then you have a few people on the bench if you're playing 11 aside. And so that's a big team, but as an individual, you can kind of end up being a bit of an outcast from the team. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, because you always partner up 1-on-1, or occasionally you're in a free, but you're always going to kind of have that that one-on-one contact with people. So it's maybe even a better platform to
Right,
get to know people.
Yeah, you can't get lost in the crowd either because you're just one on one. Right, that's a good point. Yeah, moving on. So we talked about exercise. Everyone should incorporate some sort of exercise in the day. Everyone can do it, even if it's fucking walking or some shit. Like, just do it. Don't be a bitch. Any other things you want to talk about for the daily routine for the daytime, or should we move on to the evening?
Yeah, we can move on to the evening. I mean, there's different things. So what do you have down for the evening? Because obviously people can do different things at different points in the day. So
Yeah, so the evening. I've heard of this thing called the 3-2-1 rule. We kind of discussed it just before the podcast. I don't know if there's any science back into it or whatever, but it seems to kind of work for me. And it's for the number 3 is you should finish eating 3 hours before bed. Gives your body time to kind of digest your food, so you don't get like your sleep disrupted by indigestion or whatever. Finish drinking water 2 hours before bed because you don't want to be woken up needing the toilet throughout the night. And then the one that is finish screen time now before bed. That's kind of widely known. Like, you need to get rid of that blue light before bed so you can get that melatonin production on the go, so you can kind of get that sleep cycle going. That doesn't necessarily work for all people though. Like we discussed, how for me, I feel like eating 2 to 3 hours before bed is quite important. Otherwise, I'll wake up a bit more than usual. But like you said for yourself, Peter, you don't really find that it's an issue for you, do you?
yeah, I've quite a routine. Like before I go to bed, I'll have protein brownie and milk. Done it for years. It's just what I do. So, and I think probably being used to it because I do it every day, kind of just acts as a ritual for me before I go to bed. So yeah, in terms of eating and even drinking water, I don't never really thought about that. But to be fair, I wouldn't say I have too much issues getting to sleep with those things, and like I never wake up during the night needing to go to the toilet or anything, or feeling that something's wrong with my stomach. So I suppose if I've never tried it, so maybe there would be some benefits, but yeah, I think in terms of that, I'm pretty good at the moment. But in terms of phone, like the phone is keep it away from you before bed. Is I fall into the trap. It's like sometimes at the end of a long day, it's quite easy just to slip into kind of mindlessly scrolling on your phone, and that's definitely something I fall into too often. But I think there's very good evidence that it has negative effects on your sleep, and best to avoid that before sleep.
Yeah, I think the science behind it, the rough science behind it, is blue light blocks melatonin production. You need that melatonin because it's like the sleep hormone that like helps regulate sleep and all that shit.
Yeah,
You can get blue light blockers like the glasses. I think there's a bit of a debate on whether those things actually work that much or not. But like you said, the best thing to do is just put the phone down, put any screen down, try and dim all the lights in your house after like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever. Try not to stare at TVs or whatever. But it's a bit difficult because sometimes it's almost like, what else do you do? But there's always something else you
yeah,
can do.
yeah. I also think obviously the blue light is a big thing, but also just in terms of if you're scrolling, it's like kind of stimulating for your mind and it makes you more alert.
Right? Yeah.
I guess it goes back to kind of using your phone stimulates your dopamine system, so kind of boosts your alertness, which isn't really the state you want to be in before you go to sleep. You don't want to be kind of jacked up and stimulated. You want to have kind of a natural tapering off of your energy levels before you go to sleep. So you don't want anything kind of stimulating you too much.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that mental side of it. Yeah, because I find myself, I'll be quite good and like I'll dim all the lights. I won't go on my phone. I'll like listen to a podcast and like do some stretching or whatever. And then as soon as I get into bed, I'll just go on my phone then for like fucking 10 minutes. I'm just like, fuck's sake.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into, but but yeah, it's obviously ideal to avoid. And yeah, I think avoiding the screens is especially important. I can remember, I mean, don't really do this too much nowadays, but like back in the day, like playing fucking video games for like 3 hours before you go to sleep, and then you get into bed and you're just lying there like replaying your fucking kill streaks or some shit. But
Or GTA
but yeah,
heists.
yeah, yeah, that was yeah. But yeah, want to avoid that before bed. No GTA heists,
Yeah,
no robbing banks or shooting people before bed. I think
yeah.
is probably a good general recommendation for people.
Yeah, a good substitute for that I've found for myself is reading. I like to try and read maybe 10 minutes ish, around that maybe. Like while in bed. I don't know if there's a big difference between like sitting up on a chair and reading and then going to bed straight after, or like is it good to sit up in bed and read because then you can kind of just snuggle up and fall asleep straight away? I don't know. I like to read in bed, sat up a little bit, and then just kind of put my book down. But I don't know if this negates that or not, but I'll read for a little bit and then for some reason I just have this habit of going onto Spotify and listen to a podcast for like 5 or 10 minutes and put it on the sleep timer. And then sometimes I find that kind of keeps me awake a little bit more because I'm hearing these really interesting conversations and then my mind starts going a bit. Do you have any ideas on that, or?
Yeah, it's. I think it's definitely better than doing any kind of like scrolling on your phone at that time of night, just whacking podcasts on. I do find that a slight issue for me reading at night. Like if I'm getting really into what I'm reading, then like when I go to put my book down, I actually do feel like I'm quite alert and awake.
Right.
It can even like wake me up a little bit sometimes, like when I'm getting into it. And the opposite side of it is if I'm not really in the mood for it, then it's just, I kind of find it a little bit difficult to keep the routine up of reading before bed. But probably, a big part of that is because I end up going on my phone, which if I were to just put my phone away earlier, then I would probably read more. So that's probably the solution. But sometimes I'm just like, I get into bed and I'm tired. I'm like, do I want to stay up and read, or do I just want to go to sleep? So yeah, but it's definitely like a way better habit to do um, before bed than going on your phone or using
Mm.
any sort of technology, looking at any artificial light. And kind of on that note with reading, we can get into the benefits of reading, but I suppose whilst we're at it, I do think there is, like, specifically reading is a good habit almost just as a better way of consuming information than necessarily a podcast or YouTube video or other source of information might be. And I kind of think the benefit of it is, and probably why it's good to do before sleep, is because it is a lot less stimulating and there's a lot less kind of attention switching compared to if you're getting information by watching YouTube videos or something. You might watch
Mm.
like 10 YouTube videos in an hour, whereas if you sit down to read for an hour, you just like focused on that one thing for an hour. So I do think it does kind of help you focus more and not be so like stimulated by different things. And yeah, do you think there's any, like, what would be the benefit of reading in terms of taking in information? Do you think there is any benefit compared to taking in that information through a podcast, let's say?
Yeah. I think I heard someone, I think it was Jordan Peterson again, talk about how you can, in terms of taking information, you can read faster than you can listen. So if you want to get as much information in as short time possible, you should read. The only downside to that compared to podcasts is with a podcast you can multitask, so you can listen to information while doing like your washing or like doing chores around the house and stuff. But like you said, because you're focusing solely on the book, that takes so much more effort, and the dopamine you get from that is like associated with that effort, which is a much healthier way of receiving the dopamine rather than just scrolling through your phone like we were saying. So maybe that's the main benefit. And also, I think I don't know, I think it's just something really human to read rather than get information from like modern technology. Although books haven't necessarily been
Yeah,
around that long compared to how long humans have been around, it's the most basic form of getting information. And I think humans are, at the end of the day, quite basic creatures, and we should just follow the basic, not urges, but the basic ways of life and simplify our lives rather than complicating them.
yeah. I don't think I'm not too familiar with like the specifics of the research, but I've seen a few things that there has been some findings that it shows kind of positive effects on the brain. So in terms of parts of the brain associated with memory, verbal recall, and emotional regulation. So we mentioned the amygdala at the start of when talking about why walking in the morning is beneficial, because it reduces activity in the amygdala, which is part of the brain responsible for kind of fear and anxiety.
Mm.
And reading actually does the same thing. So I think there was a study that found after reading 30 pages the night before, there was the day after in the morning, there was a decrease in activity in the amygdala. So yeah, some evidence that it might actually help reduce anxiety due to the effects it has on the brain. So yeah, that's perhaps a direct benefit of reading. And yeah, in terms of memory and verbal recall, I suppose it makes sense. It kind of consuming information and trying to learn things directly and paying attention to it, like you said, probably more than you were like. You need to put more effort into pay attention than you do for other, like using technology to consume information. Um, so yeah, it could. I think probably reasonable to think it helps with memory, and then obviously verbal recall, and I think that kind of comes along with probably helps improve your vocabulary as well. Kind of seeing new words, learning, seeing them used
Yeah,
in different contexts probably helps you to use that vocabulary to articulate yourself better. So yeah, I think those are some different benefits of reading. Any thoughts on those I just said?
yeah. I'm thinking like, is it because if you're listening to information being spoken, all you're doing is hearing information, and I think when you're reading something from a book, you have to actively read it, so you're getting that visual information, and then when you're reading it, you're saying it, so you're getting that verbal recall, and then when you're saying it, you're hearing it, so you're getting kind of three different types of, what's the word for it? Like there's three different ways you're getting the same information, which is better than just hearing information, um, and better than watching a video where you're watching and hearing the information. So maybe that's why it's a bit more embedded in humans if you like the information if you read it rather than listen. But who knows?
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I think like you can think about a podcast, and I feel like podcasts are good in terms of like that you're not attention switching, so you can listen to a 3 hour episode, and it's not like getting information from YouTube videos or even like
Yeah,
shorts or TikToks or whatever. So it kind of maintains your attention a lot better. But I feel like I do find with podcasts, if I listen to them too much, even if it is like a podcast with good information in it, it kind of, I feel like it is still slightly draining on your attention and focus in a way. Just having that constant stimulation, I feel like it's good to kind
yeah,
of take time away from it. Whereas perhaps with reading, I feel like having to actively focus more, and like you said, use different systems to consume the information. It's kind of just like you can never really read too much.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like you were saying when you're listening to a podcast, do you ever find that you kind of zone out for a few minutes and you have to go back and re-listen to it a little bit? Whereas when you're reading, if you zone
Yeah,
out, although I guess that does happen with reading, but I feel like with reading it's easier to just feel yourself zone out and then straight away just pause and just take like 30 seconds to just look around and just relax and then go back to reading from the same point. Although sometimes I do catch myself reading
yeah,
half a page and I'm like, I've just not even read a single word, but I've said that every word in a weird way. Like, I don't know how that's even worked.
Yeah, I catch myself doing that as well. It's a bit of an
But
issue, but that's probably just because my attention span is fucked from
yeah,
from watching too many YouTube shorts.
yes, they are great though, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean they're not that good though. They're just like addictive.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel
but
like
to be fair, we'll probably need to get start. Yeah, I'll probably start getting some up for the podcast at some point.
yeah,
Get people addicted to it,
come on.
but yeah, you got to take it for it is, don't you? But anyway, back to kind of reading. But I really think like getting to the core of what the benefit of reading is just being able to learn from other people, and you kind of have access to some of like you have access to the greatest minds in history and their ideas and perspectives on the world, or people's whose entire life work has been to culminate this knowledge about this specific area, and they've distilled it in the most detailed way possible in a book. And that's kind of what the book offers you. So I feel like that's a true benefit of reading. I feel like it is just kind of an essential part of, and not necessarily essential. You can learn things in other ways, and obviously, probably going out in the world and acting out things is more important than consuming information through reading. But certainly, reading is up there as one of the best things you can do to kind of grow your mind and improve and become more knowledgeable and cultured as a person.
Mm. Yeah, and also I think you're kind of talking more so about non-fiction, but even fiction, like some stories are so fucking well written and I have these underlying themes that you just wouldn't even think about unless, like, well, I guess you do think about it if you read it, but just these underlying themes that you wouldn't be able to think about yourself without reading the book. And they're just a nice little escapism for people, I think. Um,
Yeah.
and it's a shame that, like, not everybody reads as much as they should. I don't probably read as much as I should, but, like,
Yeah.
I do enjoy it and try to.
Yeah. From fiction, you can, because obviously like a movie can have a big impact on you, but like a great fiction book could probably have even a bigger impact because it's kind of always going to be able to be more in detail than a movie is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Apparently, the Game of Thrones books are just unreal. I've never watched the series or read the books, but my mate who's done both, he says the books are just so good. Yeah. Yeah, so get reading, people. You've got eyes. Well, unless you're blind, I guess. But Braille. Do they do full Braille books? I hope
Yeah,
so.
probably.
Yeah. People are missing out then. So, yeah, moving on anyway. So, reading. Great, if you can. But other evening routines, like these evening routines, like you said, reading for you sometimes straight before bed um, can be a bit counterproductive because it kind of heightens your focus and makes you a bit more alert. If you don't want to read it before bed, try and do it like during the day or just in the evening, earlier in the evening or in the morning. But other things we can do in the evening, I think it's important for people to take some time in the evening to reflect on the day they've just had. Writing is probably a better way of doing it, but even if you just do like a mental mind/thinking exercise and just take time to reflect on what you've done today, what you could have maybe done, I think that's important for people, and it'll kind of just help them see their flaw, see where they could have improved, and then they can use that to improve the next day. Do you think maybe that sort of exercise could be joined up with, like you were saying, how it's probably better for people to make their schedule the night before? Maybe they could do this exercise of reflection and then do the scheduling with it straight after it.
Yeah, that seems like a great idea to kind of reflect upon what went well during the day, what you could have done better, and then from that try and prepare to have a better day tomorrow. It's probably a great way to kind of round off the day and put your mind at ease. Because you might, by the end of the day, you might be thinking, oh yeah, I procrastinated a bit too much today, there's these things I should have done. But it kind of allows you to address that and then kind of turn the page and get ready for the next day without pondering on it too much. And yeah, doing that, in a written way would probably be good, but also just doing it mentally. And I suppose that brings us into, as a habit, which different people would think is valuable at different points in the day, would be journaling in general.
Yeah.
And there's many different types of journaling, but yeah, I think kind of the big value in it is just being able to get your thoughts on paper and kind of think through things that might be troubling you mentally, things you've been worrying about, like maybe a decision you have to make, or some emotions you've been feeling about a situation. It just kind of allows you to articulate that and kind of understand how your mind is working, and kind of dig into the thoughts and come to some sort of conclusion about them. So yeah, I think that's the main value of journaling.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I used to do an exercise where every time I do it in the morning, like as soon as I woke up, it would just be a small like notebook like size, but I'd write just a whole page of whatever was in my mind just then and there. So I might write about, oh, I had this dream, or I might write, woke up feeling fresh, blah 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 blah. And it was more so like a mind dump exercise, just dumping everything out of my brain. It was I found it quite enjoyable, but like I said, there's so many different types of journaling. Like there's gratification and stuff like that. That can be quite useful for people. I guess people just need to kind of find what works for them. And there's so many options out there. I'm sure someone will be like, you could find anything. Like everyone should be able to find something. I mean, sorry. Um, yeah, I don't know. Journaling is something I don't necessarily do it all the time, but it's something that I think people should do in the morning and at night. And I think that's the same with reading. That's just my personal opinion on it. I think it would be important if everyone could do it at night and in the morning, but it's a bit difficult in terms of time and stuff for everybody. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you'd maybe get the most possible benefit out of it by doing it at both morning and night, but I think at a certain point you do need to consider, like especially in the morning, I've started to consider more in the morning, like it's most important to kind of focus on getting into some work pretty soon. So like I wouldn't say, I've gone through periods where I've done it, but I'd say nowadays for me, I'd prefer not to spend an extra hour or like half an hour or hour ending up journaling in the morning when I should probably just be getting on to the important tasks for the day. Um, but yeah, that's just me, and I think, like I said before, it's probably easier to build certain habits in the morning. And if you wanted to build a really solid morning routine to get you started for the day, I think journaling can definitely be part of that. Perhaps like after meditation, you journal for a bit before starting the day.
yeah,
Like that would be beneficial. But yeah, I think at night as well, kind of at the end of the day, once you've you know completed the work which you've got to do, um, like you said, it's important to reflect on the day, so you could use it to that, and you can also use it just to kind of reflect upon not just today but different things on your mind, and trying to address any problems, almost being like your own therapist in a way, going through things that have been on your mind, and kind of strategizing on like what you can do to be better mentally.
yeah. I know that some people will journal, and their system that they use is they'll have their journal on them throughout the day, and anytime they have like a thought that's kind of troubling them, or like a repeated thought that troubles them, or like they'll have an idea of like sort of like a what sort of virtue they want to live their life by, they'll just write that simple sentence down in the journal, and then at the end of the day, they'll just look back at what they've written. So it's like in the moment, you want to write something down, write it down. But you don't have to spend fucking 10 minutes there doing a whole little essay. You can just write down like a thought, and then at the end of the day, reflect on it. That might be like an easier way for people to access journaling, rather than being like a
Yeah,
bit more regimented and like restricting them 10 minutes out of the day.
Yeah. To be fair, I feel like always I get ideas and I write them in my notes on my phone, but never most of the time never come back to them. To be fair, but yeah, they're there. I see them one day.
When you retire, you'll go back to them, but it's too late.
Yeah. I get to 65 and I'm like, oh, this business idea I came up with, should have done this. Well. But yeah, it's good to I kind of use it as well, like if I'm listening to a podcast and I'll just list loads of things in my notes as well. So yeah, I think that can be a value of journaling as well. If you learn something, then to kind of reaffirm it and like almost talk about why it's important. And I feel like that's probably where a lot of the ideas I come out with on the podcast come from. Is, you know, I've heard things on a podcast and I've gone away and kind of thought about it myself, and you know, particularly when it's something that like really resonates with me at that time in my life. Maybe there's a certain situation I'm in and it really resonates with me. Like I'll be able to go away and kind of think about how this lesson applies to my experience and be able to learn from that and carry it forward. So yeah, I definitely think it's a good way to develop ideas.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't think people take enough time to like kind of sit back and just reflect on what they've done during the day and stuff like that. I think it'd be important if people just like, I don't know, it's kind of like, I find that like, well, my cousin, he journals quite frequently, I think, and he'll write down like his own like quotes and like how to live life and stuff. And in a way, he's almost trying to make his own philosophy of life, and I think it's definitely benefited him a lot. He'll obviously be inspired by like Stoicism and other things that he follows, and maybe not steal things from them, but like have things that kind of cross over with those sort of ideas. But do you think if people try to make their own philosophy of how they should live their life on a more conscious level, like they wrote down things and stuff like that, that the way, like the virtues they want to live their life by, or how to act and how not to act, do you think that would benefit them as well?
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think it necessarily has to be like you don't have to come up with your own original philosophy, but I think it's good just to kind of reaffirm where ideas from, you know, like you mentioned, Stoicism might apply to different areas of your life. Like you can have a think about the idea, write down kind of what the idea means to you, and then think about how to actually apply it to your life. And that perhaps allows you to learn something on a deeper level than if you just consume the information, actually actively thinking about how you can apply it to your own life. And then obviously ideally going out into the world and living your life by those principles and realizing improvements. I think that's definitely a good way to build up a good perspective on the world and kind of a philosophy, your own philosophy, as you said.
Yeah, live out the life you want to live, but you need to think about it first, I guess. Anything else on that point?
I mean, I feel like we could go on for a while because obviously, like, journaling is just kind of writing about things. In theory, you could basically write about absolutely anything. So, but yeah, I think there's definitely value in, you know, whatever it is. Maybe it's some problems you're facing, or a new philosophy you want to implement into your life, or you can have a think about your goals and what you want from the future to gain more clarity. But yeah, I think that's what it does. It helps you gain clarity on different things going on in your mind. Whereas if you never take the time to dig down and investigate those things, then they can kind of remain foggy and unclear. Whereas I think it can definitely help with mental clarity and giving you better direction and a better ability to deal with the things that come up in your life.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's almost like a detachment there as well, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like journaling's a way. Like once, like when you write something onto the page, like you literally are creating like an objective description of it, which like it's definitely a process of detaching.
Mm. Yeah, I need to get back into it, I think. Definitely. Um, mm, any other evening routines and habits?
No. I think we've covered probably most of the habits that I think are valuable throughout the day to have.
I'd say for the evening as well, maybe if you kind of find that you struggle to sleep and stuff or struggle to fall asleep, taking hot showers can be quite beneficial. Um, you want to drop your core body temperatures at like 1 to 3 degrees to optimize your sleep throughout the night. Hot showers kind of vice versa with cold exposure. It seems counterintuitive because you're getting that heat and that stuff, but through the hot shower, your body is going to try and dump as much heat as it can. So it's going to realistically lower your core body temperature, hopefully put you into a better state so you can sleep better. And then another way to benefit that is also trying to make your room as cold as comfortably possible. Um, Obviously, in the summer months, it's going to be a bit difficult and stuff because not like realistically, no one in the UK has like AC or shit like that. But just try and make your room as nice and cold, and it might seem a bit uncomfortable at first, but like once you're in the duvet and you're sweating, not sweating, but once you're under the duvet and like you'll warm your bed up a bit, it should be all right. I'd say. And then also just stretching again. I think it's important. Just at the end of the day, depending on what you've done in the day, you'll feel where your body's a bit tight and stuff, and just stretch that out and like get your body nice and relaxed um, for bedtime.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think that's
I think that
mainly
sums up the day.
the daily habits that we wanted to cover. There is some weekly habits that I think would be important, and like monthly. So I don't know what day it was, but I think it was the other day. I woke up and then went for a nice little long walk with my cousin, and we kind of had like a nice relaxing morning. Went for a sauna and shit and swim, and I realised that I think if it's possible for people. I know it's not necessarily possible for everybody, but having one morning a week where you really just take time to relax for like the first hour or hour and a half. That doesn't mean just sitting on your ass and like going on your phone doing nothing, but just going outside, taking a really nice slow stroll, and being conscious of like not each step you take, but like being conscious of the direction you're going in. Hopefully, going to a park, seeing a bit of nature, and hearing some birds sing, or maybe seeing someone walk their dog or whatever. I think it'd be important for people to incorporate that sort of habit into their week, if it's, like even if it's just once. And like we said earlier, like obviously you're getting the benefit of the sun. The What was that visual thing you said?
The
Ambience.
what was it? Forward ambulation.
That's it. Not ambience.
Yeah.
Forward ambulation. Yeah. And oh yeah, one thing that I said, but you definitely formulated better, is having that like some sort of unfamiliar creative endeavor each week. If you want to explain that, Pete.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned, it would be good for people at least on a weekly basis to kind of have like a creative thing that they do. But I'd even expand that to just doing something unfamiliar and new, or just something slightly out of your routine, which almost adds a little bit of spice to life. Because obviously I feel like in terms of progressing and as a person and making improvements, probably the most fundamental thing is these daily habits of working hard and exercising, and obviously doing the rest of the things to optimize kind of your mental and physical health. But you know, if I feel like you kind of do lose something if you just stay in that routine all the time. So I think it is good just to kind of, freshen up the mind, do something a little bit exciting, a little bit different to what you usually do. Whether that be, if you don't go rock climbing, you could go rock climbing at the weekend, or you could go on a hike or something, or just something that's slightly different from the usual activities. And
Mm.
um, it can get a bit like boring and repetitive if you're just going through your same daily routine all the time. And obviously, if you're young like us, and there's opportunities to go out and do things like drinking, which aren't necessarily good for you, and you probably don't want to be doing every single week. So yeah, it's good to have these other forms of activities which are still enjoyable, are still bring a bit of excitement to your life, but are still healthy as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm sure no matter where you live, there'll be something new that you haven't necessarily done, or that you haven't done in a long time, that you can go and try. Um, I don't know how much it relates to the. I guess it kind of does. That idea. Well, then it's not really an idea. It's more of a fact that, like, when you put yourself into new situations, you get the production of new genes and stuff. I know Jordan Peterson's talked about it a bit. I can't really remember the exact explanation of it, but putting your body into new situations where you're unfamiliar and it's kind of a little bit stressful because you don't know what's going to go on, your body starts to produce these new genes that, like, I don't know, they're just healthy, I guess. I don't know. It's a shoddy explanation.
Yeah,
Sorry for that, but
yeah. You kind of have these, like, obviously your genes. I'm not. I don't know the exact science, because I think there's stuff nowadays where there's like epigenetics, where like your activities actually do affect your genes. But a lot of your genes are kind of constant and always there, but a lot of them lie dormant until you do things that actually require them to come out and be shown. So if you never do things which challenge yourself, and take you outside your comfort zone, then these genes won't activate. That's kind of my understanding of it. It
yeah,
might be a little bit bro sciencey, but that's kind of the basic idea, that you kind of unlock your potential which you have inside of you on kind of a genetic level if you do put yourself into different situations. And yeah, so that's kind of the benefit of doing something kind of different on a weekly basis. And yeah, like I said, just kind of keeps life a bit fresher and stops you getting into this kind of very monotonous routine.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then it's just fun doing shit that's new, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I sometimes feel like if I go too long a time just focusing on like specific habits, just daily habits, and especially on trying to stay away from doing fun things like going out and drinking, it does sometimes take a bit of, like, I don't know, just I lose a little bit of enthusiasm. Whereas I think it's good, probably on a weekly basis, is the right amount to go out and do something, a little bit fun, a little bit different.
yeah, that's what the weekend's for. Um, yeah, and then I heard Tim Ferriss talk about this exercise that he does, and he's made a habit out of it to do it every month, once a month, and it's a little bit similar to the self-authoring program, but he calls it fear setting. So he kind of takes time once a month to sit down. I think he'll write it out, what he kind of fears in life, and it's more so a push motivator rather than a pull motivator towards good habits. Um, I'd say it's quite important. It might be more beneficial for people to do goal setting and stuff, but fear setting, like we said in previous podcasts, it seems like humans are kind of more attentive to negative, like headlines and like emotions and stuff, because that's kind of where the danger is. So maybe fear setting would be more important to people because it'd have a higher impact. But just take time to think about, okay, 6 months time, what am I fearful of? Fearful of getting out of shape, or I'm fearful of not achieving the grade I wanted, or I'm fearful of not getting this amount of money by then, or whatever, or not saving this, or not getting a promotion, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not as simple as just writing those things down, I don't think, and using that as motivation. I think there also needs to be a bit of an action plan to make sure you avoid that, or make sure you achieve what you want to achieve and stuff like that. Do you have any ideas on like if fear setting could be more beneficial than goal setting? Or
Yeah, I'd say both are important, and I suppose if you only do the fear setting, then you've got something to run away from. But I feel like it's kind of essential to have something, like have a direction to move towards. I think obviously they both help each other, and perhaps in some ways being fearful is more motivating than wanting to move towards a goal. But if you don't have a goal to move towards, then you're just running away in a random direction. So I feel like they are kind of definitely both important. And perhaps this goes back to journaling. We spoke about it as a daily habit, but on like a monthly basis, or like maybe even a yearly basis, you can do different things where you review how the year went, or review how the month or even the week went, different time spans, and also kind of rethink like what your goals are, and also like you were saying, what things you're afraid of, and kind of reorienting yourself on every so often, just to keep yourself moving on the right track.
yeah, yeah, that's a good point actually. Do maybe like a week in review, month in review, 6 months in review, year in review. Do you think 2 years in review might be a bit too much of an extended period of time? Or well, I guess it depends on what your goals are, I
Yeah, I
guess.
mean, I guess, yeah, you could go all the way back. Like Jordan Peterson's got his past authoring program, where you basically write an autobiography of your whole life. So you break it down into, I think it's like 5 or 6 different parts, and then you pick out the same number of like significant events from that time, whether they're positive and negative, and kind of do a review of your whole life up until now. So yeah, I think you can expand the time period all the way back. But yeah, obviously it depends how often you're doing it. But yeah, I think like on a semi-regular basis, it is good to do these different kind of exercises where you think maybe in a more broad way, like how have things been going for this extended period of time, or how do I want things to go for this extended period of time into the future.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. I guess that kind of finishes us up with everything. Um,
Yeah.
Linking back
Yeah, but
to
there's one last thing I
oh, sorry,
wanted to.
go on.
So yeah, there's one last thing I kind of wanted to talk about in terms of these habits. So like on a daily basis, or like a weekly, or even on a month time scale, like doing these little things every day, it's hard to really know all the benefits. So something that I think is important to consider is, in the long term, if you just do these small good habits, then you're just pushing your trajectory slightly upwards. And years down the line, you might look back and think, like a lot of the progress you made will be from these tiny habits, and there might be benefits you end up getting from them, which is completely unforeseen, and there's no way you could have predicted that before. But just because you were doing these good things each day, you were kind of just setting yourself up for success, where something good was more likely to happen to you. So I do think it's important to consider that you can think about the small benefits of each of these things. And obviously you can't underestimate how small benefits can add up over time. But yeah, it's also important to consider how there will be unforeseen benefits from these things which you can't even predict now. But if you just put in your eggs in the right basket, then ultimately you are gonna get more positive outcomes.
Yeah, yeah, I think extending that, it even goes back to what we talked about a while ago with Nietzsche and stuff, like the correct path. No, I don't know if correct, but the path that he would say you should take is striving for self actualization. And a way to get to that point is building these good habits and executing them on a regular basis, daily, weekly, monthly. Maybe not necessarily if you get the results you want. Sorry, even if you don't necessarily get the results you want, I think you can still be happy that you're on the path to self actualization, because you're going about life in a way that represents a higher man, and it's better to be a higher man than to be the, what's the word for it again? The
The
last man.
herd. Yeah.
But yeah, and then also, like, kind of separate from that, but we talked about these habits here today, and like where we think you could implement them throughout your day. Obviously, change it and make it appropriate to your own schedule and stuff. But like last episode we talked about Alex Hormozy and how he kind of has this ethics. His work ethic is kind of just get shit done that needs to be done, and I think that's quite important as well. Like, we'll have these habits set in place, but if you have to get shit done on that specific day, forget everything else and prioritize and execute, and just get that shit out of the way, and then focus on the little habits you need to do. But yeah, just make sure you prioritize everything.
Yeah, that's well put. Like, in the grand scheme of things, the most important thing, you don't need to do every single one of these habits. We spoke about the benefits of each, and maybe some of them resonate with different people, but yeah, I think, there's obviously benefits to specific habits, but perhaps there's also a benefit of, just think about your own habits and thinking specifically what of your own habits you want to break, and what specifically specific kind of issues you might have, and how you think you can improve that with your habits. So maybe you struggle to wake up in the morning, or something. So viewing sunlight in the morning is going to help with that. Or I don't know, you might struggle to go to bed at night. So getting off your phone might help. Or you struggle to work, or don't think you're as productive as you should be. So staying away from your phone and removing distractions might help. So just kind of thinking practically how you can implement these things into your own life. I think is probably the big takeaway from this. But like you said, so someone like Alex Hormozy, different people kind of disregards the benefits of little habits when they don't contribute to the ultimate aim, which is fair enough. And ultimately, the most important thing is that you are doing your most important tasks for your most important goals and pursuing those goals. But yeah, these are little tools which can help you along the way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I hope that's been a useful podcast for you guys. And you're gonna implement things that can improve your lives and all that shit. I think that we've got some good ones there that most people should be able to resonate with, and hopefully do actually take action upon. We might miss some. If we did, please leave it down in the comments below. Anything else you want to add, Pete?
I think that's good. Yeah, I think we covered everything today. So yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for listening again. Check us out on Spotify, like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.
See ya.